Hello, magical mushroom people. It's Tom Hatsis, historian at Sanctum Psychedelia, here with episode 5 of the Sanctum Oddcast, featuring Amanita Dreamer. Sanctum Psychedelia is a psychedelics education and harm reduction organization based here in Portland, Oregon. We are also the curators of the Sanctum Psychedelic Library, which is steadily becoming the world's largest online repository of psychedelic literature that you can check out by visiting sanctum.org. And please remember that we survive solely based on your tax-free donations and Patreon support. In this episode, I sit down with the Grand Madame of the mushroom herself, Amanita Dreamer. You know, in our current age, when the Amanita Muscaria can sometimes be seen as like a lesser mushroom than perhaps those of the psilocybe variety, Amanita Dreamer is here to correct the record and bring the true magic of these timeless medicines into the modern age. I hope you enjoy our conversation. I surely did, and I hope you have a blessed day. So, hello, I'm here with the Sanctum Oddcast. I think this is episode 5 or maybe it's 6, which is a shame that there's so few and I've already lost count, but here we are. And I'm here with Amanita Dreamer, who is I'm a fan of and has some really awesome insights into the Amanita Muscaria, which is cool because it's as you call it, an advanced mushroom, but it's such an advanced mushroom that we don't really hear about it too often. And so I tip my hat to you for really digging into the Amanita Muscaria in a way that I really haven't seen anybody do yet. So please, everybody, welcome Amanita Dreamer. So,
Thanks, man.
cool. So there's one thing I wanted to say real quick before we started, which I found interesting. So last night I actually had a dream that I was thinking about this oddcast, and I was like, oh, I should probably email Amanita Dreamer my number just in case we need to, if something happens, we need to text each other. And lo and behold, I woke up this morning to an email from you saying, hey, just in case something goes wrong, here's my number. I was like, how cool is that?
Dude, I have to tell you, like, we all know about synchronicity and stuff like that, and we all live with them in our lives. But I'll tell you what, from the first time I used Amanita onward, the synchronicities have been insane. Like, that's all my life is now is synchronicity.
Awesome.
And I hear that from other people that use this mushroom. And the dreams are insane once you start using this mushroom.
Mhm.
People tell me all the time, like, I dreamed about it, then I found it, then I found you. Like, the dreaming is the thing, thus the name of my channel. So it's the dreams. I don't know, man. It's crazy.
It is. It's nuts. And I would say that I agree with that. I've been, as I call it lately, swimming in synchronicities because, I mean, we just ended, what do we know? A couple months ago, we ended the Amanita Muscaria season. And I mean, my partner and I went out and we got tons of the stuff. And they've definitely been communicating and sharing their wisdom. And we've been experimenting with making different kinds of tinctures and potions out of them. And so it's a really what I find so interesting about it is that it's not as what's the word I'm looking for? Awful, maybe, that people make it out to be. Like when you read things about the Amanita Muscaria, all you hear are these just, oh, I got sick, I got this, I felt horrible. I'm like, it didn't, what?
I thought about if I was really good at editing or at animation or whatever, I wanted to make a video that was if people talked about chicken or alcohol the way they talk about Amanita, just to bring out the insanity of it. Like, what's for dinner? The toxic chicken. Make sure you cook it correctly, folks, or you could wind up in the emergency room. But look what we can make. It's
Yeah.
like, what if commercials were like that? Or alcohol, which is actually deadly and Amanita isn't, but like, so it would even be a weird kind of thing to make with alcohol because it would actually be true with alcohol.
Yeah.
It's just bizarre to me the way this thing is treated. And I'm actually, because I'm not like a confrontational person unless like you cross me in some way that's horrible. But there's a YouTuber that's got a pretty big channel And his whole thing, he agreed it was clickbaity. Uh, YouTuber eats a deadly mushroom, and he's got a huge Amanita right on the thumbnail. And I went into the comments and I said, "Can you please change the title of this? Call it toxic, but don't call it deadly, because number one, that's absolutely inaccurate. And number two, a lot of people need this for medicine. And it's because of stuff like this that they wind up not taking it and either committing suicide or having, a really rough time." And he wrote back and said, "It is deadly. It's been implicated in so many deaths." And I said, "Cite your source,"
Who
because it hasn't. And the only few deaths where it was in their body, it was the alcohol that killed them, because they combined the two, and it was a lot of alcohol. They were seriously intoxicated. And those are the only times that Amanitas, and those are even rare. And he did not respond to that. He did not cite any sources. And I asked him to please just change. And he said, "Hey, he was joking about it. How I can't help it. The YouTube God algorithm, got to do what we got to do."
so
And I
put out
was
false
like,
information is what he
and
said.
and I need to go find it, because it's still there unless he deleted it. But he said, "I've been doing this for 20 years and I educate my audience and I'm proud of what I do." And then, but he's going to stand on the side of misinformation. And I'm thinking about making a calling out video and actually putting that out there as content and calling him out. It's just not my style.
Sure. Well, is
But
this psyched substances? Is that who you're talking about?
oh no,
No.
Psych Substance is awesome.
Yeah, no, that's why I was.
He's
You just said you
great.
said a popular YouTuber.
He
Yeah,
no,
he's awesome.
he's a chef, and he's on the edible side of things, just for food. And so, I think he's got chef or something in his title of his channel or whatever.
Okay.
So he's coming down on the side of food, but he even engages in that thing that snake oil salesmen do, and like pseudosciences, where they'll say one true thing, and then they'll back it. They'll say a whole bunch of inflammatory, not true things to sort of associate it with that.
Sure.
And the whole video, he did that in the whole video.
Huh, I'd like to, I guess, yeah, I didn't, that's why I was a little like, because the only really big psychedelic YouTuber that I watch is Psyched Substances, and I was like, I couldn't see that guy.
Psych Substance is
Yeah,
amazing.
he's great. Okay, I
No,
mean,
no, no.
well, there's a way that I think you can put that information out there without like calling him out, like it doesn't have to be a like I told you so, you can.
And I'm not trying to be like that. I'm
Of course,
actually
yeah.
saying I think he doesn't realize the gravity of the situation. I think he thinks it's cheeky and funny and cute. And I think if I presented him with what's actually going on over here on the medicinal side of things, that at least I don't think comes across as the kind of person that would admit it and be like, "Holy crap, I didn't even know this. I'm so sorry," and then mention it on camera. I think he would just be like, "Well, cool, thanks for the education," and leave it. And he would leave it like that, I think.
Well, I'm always a big fan of giving somebody the opportunity to do the right thing.
Yeah, that
So
was really negative of me, wasn't it?
no, well, but I mean, it sounds like he's kind of been pushing some negativity at you, and it gets
Well,
so
he was
I get
extremely condescending.
oh,
I didn't put that in there.
sure. Well, I mean, look, it's difficult to remain pleasant when somebody's being condescending toward you. So you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like it's just, but it's a shame that we especially in the psychedelic realm and in the medicinal realm, that especially something like the Amanita Muscaria, because even things like sciatica, it's good for the mushroom, the Amanita.
Any nervous system issues I'm
Yeah.
starting to see are being looked at for treatment. I mean, migraines and Parkinson's,
Really?
epilepsy, Tourette's.
I
Yeah,
hadn't
a
heard of
lot.
those.
Yeah,
Wow.
there's a lot of studies well, Muskemol,
Sure.
which is lab made,
Yeah.
which isn't the same thing
Yeah.
as
And oh, sorry, I didn't mean to
no,
interrupt you.
no, I don't always finish a sentence. My train will leave the track and whatever, jump in.
There was something once that you said in one of your videos that certainly educated me. I did not know this, but that it had to do with the conversion of ibotenic acid into Muskemol, and how it wasn't. Oh, and now I'm blanking on this. That the ibotenic acid isn't as harmful? Am I mixing this up? That
No, you got it right.
that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that it's not as harmful as people make it out to be.
Here's the thing, there's a missing piece to the puzzle, and I really want to figure it out. And I don't know if I will or not, but like research what they have to do to dot all their I's and cross all their T's is learn the extremes of something they're studying. And so with ibotenic acid, they wanted to know, like, what all does it do? What are the extremes of it? Is it a possible drug? Can we, use this? And so I'm only going to say this once because I don't know, it's very upsetting to me. But to figure out what it does, they injected it into different animals' brains from the very small to the large, and found that it was neurotoxic. It killed brain cells and caused severe brain damage. And that's all the study they did. And then they just moved on and said, that's it, it's a neurotoxin. But not all drugs are okay injected.
No.
Like even drugs that are safe to consume orally or through the skin or to smoke would be toxic if they were injected. And so, oh, baby. So
she's meowing loudly.
Yeah. Oh, she's fun. Oh, what a sweetheart. So when I saw that right there, and I saw that those are the only studies that had been done with ibotenic acid, I was like, I'm calling bullshit on that. Because you hear of ancient people eating it raw. And I was like, well, it's not deadly. We know this much. And I don't think that one bite is going to send me to the emergency room throwing up. So I did it on camera for the very first time. The video is called Microdosing Ibotenic Acid. And I took a bite and I said, let's see what happens. And I had a blast. It was great. One bite, but what I saw that it did to me mimicked Adderall. And yeah, so I started asking people, hey, if you have ADD, ADHD, like, and I've had 2 people get back to me and they say, oh yeah, like I don't have to deal with my ADD issues and side effects anymore because I microdose ibotenic acid every day. Huh. And I was like, that's interesting. That's pretty cool. But also it gave me like the motivation and the bigness of feeling like I could do anything. I could conquer anything.
Yeah, the Amanita feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was really cool. And I got a lot done. So now when I need to get shit done, like I'll use the ibotenic acid side.
Huh. Oh, that makes me regret having dried all the, we have Pantherina and Muscaria, and we dried all of it.
You only converted 30%, and that's only if you dried it at the right heat.
What is the right heat?
165 Fahrenheit.
What is it?
165 Fahrenheit.
Yeah, that's what we did.
Yeah. So you only converted 30%.
Oh, okay, great.
So if you just break off a little piece of it dry, you would get a large amount of ibotenic acid.
Okay, excellent. And for if you wanted to convert all of it from ibotenic acid to Muskemol, do you know what heat you'd have to dry it at that point?
You can't, because it dries, and you need a fluid medium to continue a chemical reaction. So once it dries like that chemical reaction's over. But then you boil it, add lemon. You can push a lot of decarb that way. There's other ways to decarb it. We talk about it on the channel.
Sure. Yeah, one of the ways that I do it is I reduce it. I mean, I do sometimes, like, I will cook it in alcohol, but I will cook the alcohol for about 8, sometimes 9 hours, to the point where it just becomes an Amanita base, where there's really no more alcohol in it at all. It's just now liquefied Amanita.
Well, what you're doing there is you're converting the ibotenic acid just because you're cooking it for so long.
Sure.
But the studies that I saw, ethanol is actually a very weak extractor, and you might get 20% out of the mushroom with ethanol. Methanol is you can get up to 90% out of it, but of course we can't drink methanol. But
no. Yeah. Wow.
That's why tinctures made with alcohol meant to extract, you'll get a little bit, but it'll be weak. It's more for preserving the tincture.
Sure. Well, I'm still pretty new to working with Amanita Muscaria, and it's actually how my partner is actually the one who discovered your channel, and she was like, you got to check this like she's incredible, like she has so much great information, and you really get deep into it. And what I want to say that I've actually wanted to say to you for a while, and it's nice to not say it in the email, but somewhat to you, albeit virtually, but your passion and love for this mushroom comes out like so much. And it's not like, I don't know, it's wonderful to always meet people that have such a passion about this very misunderstood well, not plant ally, but fungal ally. So it's really it's remarkable, and the work you're doing is really fantastic, and that's why we were really excited to get you on the Oddcast here. We call it the Sanctum Oddcast, not a podcast, but
That's awesome. It's really cool too, because this morning, well, I have this thing that I do during harvest season because it's so overwhelming to be constantly out there in the rain and in here processing, cleaning, dehydrating, pulling them out, organizing, taking photos for Instagram, trying to catalog everything. And then all the experiments that I've been taking notes all year that I need the raw material to do, making sure I get all of those set up, like trying to do all this simultaneously and not sleep is hard.
yeah.
And so what I did in the middle of it all is I managed to take this photograph that even as I set it up, I started crying because they feel like a family reunion of a relative that you are so close to and you haven't seen all year. And when they're there, like it's overwhelming. It's emotionally overwhelming. And so I took this photo and I said, I'll deal with all these photos through the year. Like I eke them out a little bit at a time on my Instagram. And I needed some more. So I went into my computer this morning and I knew that picture was sitting in a folder. And I'm like, I think it's time to pull it out. This was like 2 hours ago. And I opened it and I just burst into tears. And I sat here and cried for like 10 minutes. I couldn't stop crying because I miss them so much, because I remember the moment that I took that picture, and because I knew that they're only here for like 2 days before they're gone. And each one of them is unique and beautiful and has their own personality. And I remember each one of them as I took that picture. And it's amazing.
It really is. It reminds me of what I refer to as the primitive giddiness when you find one. Like when you're walking, like,
oh my
right?
God.
And when you see, you're just like you just, there's this excitement, and it's like they call out to you.
Yes.
And there was this time. God. Yeah, there was a time when one of the first times my partner and I went mushroom, like we were having no luck at all. And then all of a sudden, this little moth approached me and floated around and was saying, "Follow me." And I was like, I'm going to follow this moth. And she led me right to a fair. I was like, and then yeah, it was just like, they are so magical. Like they are so magical. And it's weird that we never, I love, again, I know I keep saying it, that we're like, that you're reinvigorating this ancient magic that our ancestors, the primitive giddiness, when you
it is magic. Oh my God. If ever there was a word to describe this, it is magic. Yeah. Like, and I'm science-based. Like that's my background. And I was like steeped in the religion of science to the point of like totally on board with the whole construct of medicine and the FDA. And when modern medicine failed me over and over and over, and I had to keep turning to natural versions of it to get okay, then when nothing else helped after the benzos, and I searched, that's all I did is look. I kept thinking there's got to be a natural answer to panic and anxiety. You can't tell me there's an answer to everything, but there's not one for that. That's too important, and never found one. And I searched religiously and just never found one. And religiously, pun not intended, but apropos. And when I found the Amanita that time, what it did for me was not only make me go, okay, you know what? Fuck medicine. I'm so sick of this bullshit. This is ridiculous. The fact that it was hidden, the fact that it works, the fact that it could save the suffering of this planet, and it's so gate kept. Like, we've got a serious problem on this planet. And after that, how it made me feel, the magic the intuition, the waking up of my senses, being able to listen to the forest, the trees started to speak to me. I'm like, what the fuck is this, man? This ain't right. This is not normal. People don't do this.
No, but it is normal.
But
It's just
they do.
it's a forgotten normalcy. That's the thing, because like you mentioned gatekeepers, and I find that one of the biggest gatekeepers is like the psychedelic renaissance, like that YouTuber that you said calling these things deadly. And again, most everything I'd ever read about the Amanita Muscaria said that it would, just stay away from this one. And then I met a few friends who had eaten it. They're like, no, it's not like that at all. Like, just try it. And I did. I'm like, oh, this is great. Like, this isn't awful. I mean,
when something can take me from suicidal, and I don't mean momentary, I mean for a year, planned, will executed, said goodbye to everybody, left notes for everybody to find everything and know how to take care of everything, and just sitting and waiting until I felt it was the right moment, but absolutely decidedly done with this lifetime, like done. And the pain, I knew it was going to leave everybody, but knew that I couldn't continue to live feeling the way I was feeling, that I was just miserable. And I tried for 5 freaking years to stop the panic. Like, when you can take a life from that to happy overnight, it made me sick that the exact opposite narrative is all over the internet.
yes.
Like, what is that? That is madness.
I think it's people trying to save their own hide sometimes. And it's weird because the Amanita, like, she's so easy to like make like a fall guy, like it's so easy to just point and be like, oh, well, that's where the problem is. It's like, but it's really not. And I mean, well, I just want to say, I'm so happy you're still here. And I'm so happy that you're doing all this great work, because it is so necessary these days, because the Amanita Muscaria is that powerful. And as you know, there's a deep human relationship with that mushroom. And we wouldn't have been using it for thousands of years if it didn't work.
See, that's what I thought when I was reading about it, and deadly toxic, toxic, deadly, deadly toxic. And I'm like, but wait, why is it on all these cards with children on them? And why is it in the lore? And why do we have all these traditions around it? And why do people revere it in history? Why? Because it'll kill you? Like, that's not how we treat things that are deadly in history. And I'm like, this doesn't, that's what gave me the courage to take it. That, and then Psych Substance did an episode on it and he drank it. And I'm like, all right, well, he's still alive, so I guess I won't die. And if I die, I'm trying to die anyway. So,
well, I'd like to follow with the cards, because it appears on New Year's cards from Germany, and the reason, the association there is from an old Germanic custom called Glücksbringer, which translates to luck bringer. And so the whole thing is that it's like, how could these things be so deadly and so poisonous if they're associated with lucky? And the whole point was you would exchange Amanita Muscaria with friends and family members at New Year's parties. It's like, how is this? Like, at what point is this supposed to be poisonous and deadly if it's people trading them? And we know they were putting them in beers. We know in Yugoslavia, among the Kochelia people, I mean, they say straight up, yeah, we put the mushrooms in the beer. They grow from the ground because when Odin was fleeing spirits one night, evil spirits, his horse's saliva dripped, and every place the saliva dripped grew the mushroom. And so that's why we put them in our beers. It's like, that doesn't sound very poisonous to me. That sounds like a tradition based around the medicinal and psychoactive properties of this mushroom. No? I mean,
exactly. And then
missing the mark here.
The deadly ones, the white deadly ones, the death caps and the Veroses, we don't have any traditions around those because they're deadly.
Yeah, because they'll kill you.
Right. It's like, oh my gosh. And it makes me sad because I'm on TikTok, and somehow TikTok has got me pegged on the algorithm as somebody that is, I don't know, a recovered drug addict, which technically I am, getting off benzos. And all I get through my feed constantly are people crying and, hey, I'm sober. Hey, this is hard. Hey, this is killing me. I'm like, hey, you need to come find my channel. And then all I get back is, yeah, I'm not really a drug user. I'm kind of trying to get away from that, whatever, but thanks. Or, why are you, that mushroom is deadly. What's wrong with you? Like, that's all I get back, because, and you only get one chance to make a first impression.
Not with
And,
me.
well,
I allow for people to have a bad day. And I'll always say that, you know what? Maybe that person's just having a rough day. And I bet you if I met that person under different circumstances, we might end up becoming very good friends. But I know what you're saying, that you,
no,
for
I
most
don't care
people,
what they think of me. I'm sad that they're not getting something amazing and beautiful.
oh,
They
oh,
see my channel and they're gone. And if they write back, it's something like, no, I don't do drugs, but thanks anyway, or that's deadly. What's wrong with you? And they are missing out because this, I don't know, well, they don't know why, but Muskemol actually hits the dopa receptors in addition to the GABA receptors. So any addictions that hit the dopa receptors, like opium addiction, nicotine, sugar, alcohol, it helps. So like in my smoke blends, plug for my smoke blends, I put Amanita in there along with kudzu root. And both of those hit the dopa receptors. And so like if you smoke it for about a week, your cravings will start to lift. And it's really good for that. Not only that, but I mean, it alleviates the anxiety that most people are self-medicating for in the first place. So it's a really good mushroom for people that are recovering from drug addiction.
well, then speaking of plugs, where can listeners get your smoke blend and other tinctures and stuff? Would you mind just saying what your website is, or?
It's just my Etsy store, but if you
It's,
look for it, the Etsy's so watered down, I don't come up, but I have links to it in all my videos, in the description of
okay.
all my videos. And it's
And
only stocked 3 days a month because it's so labor intensive to make them. I don't make them in bulk. I make every one by hand. And then I also have this extract that's like topical for pain. And I make it all, by hand, one at a time. So it takes about 3 weeks to get the store stocked, and then it sells out in like 3 or 4 days.
sure. Well, it's good that, yeah, that people, like, as much as there is bad press around the Amanita Muscaria, the fact that your stuff sells out as fast as it does means, at least to me, that the message is getting out there somewhat. I watched your Amanita Muscaria and the Ego video, and you were saying how it sells out pretty fast, and that kind of gave me hope. I was like, oh, okay, this is great.
What do you think about my take on the ego?
Certain things I agreed with, certain things I disagreed with respectfully. I'm like you in that I don't see the ego as this evil thing. I see the ego. I mean, this might be a little wooey for some people, but for me, to borrow from Carl Sagan, that we are all pieces of the universe getting to know itself. Well, that's what your ego is. It's that place inside of you that is the universe having its experience through you. So I agreed with you there. The only place that I disagreed with was where that the negative aspect of the ego comes from. You tended to place it squarely within religion and Christianity, whereas I trace it only back to actually Timothy Leary and his ideas in the 1960s, where his whole idea was that you need to kill the ego so that you can re-imprint new ideas into yourself. And that's kind of where the whole, like, because I've read a lot of the literature on this, and before essentially the mid 1960s, you don't hear anything in the historical record about trying to annihilate your ego, or at least in such a the ego's bad way. I mean, of course, you have the ego death experiences of, ancient entheogenic rites, of course, like that's of course there, but they weren't seeing it as a way to, okay, and now imprint this new material and you have to kill your ego. It was more of a just a larger experience. I'm not really explaining it right, but
No, I think though, and I didn't go into it, you're right. My take on it is that because I was raised in a very Southern fundamental religion,
sure.
and the whole thing is you're dirty, you're unclean, you're unworthy, you're filth, and you don't ever get anything good on this earth. You have to get it by the grace of God. And if God isn't feeling very graceful the day you die, well, you go to hell. And so I grew up feeling wrong and broken and dirty and hating the self. And I'm saying, totally making this shit up, but I'm saying that I believe, as people do, raised in religion, internalized that whole message. And even though they got out of religion and found psychedelics, are still bringing that whole concept of my ego is me and I'm bad and I'm dirty and I need to kill it to get cleansed by the psychedelics now and be okay. I didn't explain that very well.
I see what you're saying. So, okay.
But I'm making that shit up. Like, I don't have any proof of that.
Well, but in a way, I mean, your experience is some of the proof, because like I was not raised, I was raised in New York, and we don't really have that kind of thing.
Lucky you.
Yeah, we don't really, well, we have other things, but we don't have that. So I feel what you're saying, and I can see how absolutely being raised in that kind of Christianity, and I'm not a Christian myself, but that also seems like a misuse of Christianity to me. That hardcore, you know, I don't know, where in the South were you raised?
Well, partly in Memphis, Tennessee, but most of it down on the coast.
Okay, yeah. So I can, so I again, and I don't want to paint with a broad brush here, but I mean, I have traveled. I've been on book tours, so I have seen parts of the country that make me kind of go, ooh, like, wouldn't want to live here. For exactly the reason you're specifying. That, I mean, I'm sure somebody like me would have been probably lynched, like, you know, pretty early on. Just because of my own, you know, my gender identity and things like that, and my sexuality and stuff. So
repress.
Yeah, and that's but at the same time, I mean, it is good that we do have access to these medicines that can kind of turn that around. Is that, would you say that repress that you grew up with was what led to your later anxiety, benzo addiction, or was that, and if you don't want to talk about it, we don't.
I'm completely open about it. My anxiety started at birth. Like, I don't ever remember a day in my life where I didn't live in a constant state of anxiety. So Hurricane Katrina was what pushed me over the edge, and I wound up having to get on benzodiazepines because I was just in full-blown panic and it wasn't stopping, and I was non-functional. And it was a dependence, because benzos are evil and they hijack your whole body, your brain, all your receptors, your gut, everything, your immune system, and you just become completely dependent on them.
But they're legal. They have to be good for you.
Don't even get me started. It's crazy. The whole medical pharma system is so disgusting to me now and so broken. I have other people that I know that worked for the drug trial industry in good faith, wanting to do good, and couldn't last because of the unbelievable amount of corruption. And I was in a couple of them just because I needed money. And when I had side effects, they put me out of the study so that those side effects didn't have to be included in the study. Like, it's bad. It's, wow. Oh, if you only knew.
I don't. Tell me more. Like this needs.
No, that's a regular occurrence.
Really?
In drug trials, that if you get adverse effects that you aren't comfortable with, you just put the people out of the study. This happens a lot. Yeah.
That's horrible.
And when I told, they have to get regular inspections of all of their paperwork and the studies and everything. And when they threw me out of the study and I was leaving, someone was there inspecting, and I told them what happened and gave them my number. And they just kind of looked at me like, okay, whatever. Like, they were not even the least bit interested in that information. And I never heard from them.
Oh.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's messed up. It's so broken. And as long as our healthcare is dependent on money and power, it's never going to be okay. And the fact that YouTube is taking my videos down the way that they are. Like I've had to move so many of my videos over to Odyssey. How to dry Amanita, why to dry it. I can't ID it. My video on identification and how to avoid the deadly ones, those were taken down for teaching how to make dangerous drugs.
Well, there's the money and power. I mean, what is YouTube but that? I mean,
Yeah,
they're
and
they're pretty horrible. I mean, the way these platforms censor. I mean, there are some people that I wouldn't want to hear from, but I don't think that, I don't know, especially something like what you're doing, which is such a positive good. I mean, what are they getting, kickbacks or under the table money from the pharmaceutical industry? Like, what's going on here?
I've
Like,
tried to piece it together and it doesn't make sense because benzodiazepines are no longer financially viable because they're so far out of their patents now that the generic people, are using it. But also, you know how we had all those lawsuits over smoking and cigarettes and cancer,
mhm.
and then it was the opiate painkillers. And so, the drug companies wanted to get out of that as quickly as they could, and they're trying to get out of that as quickly as they can. And now it's benzodiazepines, and we're going to see more and more lawsuits that involve them. So it's not about money for the drug companies that I can see. Like I can't follow that. And if you look at Google owning YouTube, the way that YouTube censors is so harsh and so odd. Like because other people are eating this mushroom raw and bragging about it, and those aren't getting taken down. And then people are identifying Amanita, they're identifying the deadly ones, and they're not getting taken down. Ones where I've used Amanita on camera and tripped on it, those got taken down. But there's a very large channel that did, how your ancestors got high. I think everyone's seen that video. And one of them is they all drink Amanita tea and one person gets really sick on camera. That video is still up.
Hmm.
So I think what happens is once the bots crawl your channel and you violate, then there's like a time frame that they check up on you again, because I'm noticing that it's happening every 3 months and each time more videos are attacked. And like these videos have been up for over a year. So I think that once you're labeled a violator, that's it. You're kind of on the radar. And I don't think there's any sanity to it.
Huh.
I don't know. I don't know.
I guess I'm one of the lucky ones. I don't have that many subscribers to my YouTube channel, so I'm not on the radar at all.
But you don't teach how to prepare, and you don't teach use, and you don't use on camera.
Well, I am actually making a video coming up. It is actually going to be my first preparation video. The title is How to Cook Ayahuasca Like a Psychedelic Witch. And I will be cooking ayahuasca on camera.
Be
So
careful.
maybe at that time, yeah, I'll probably see I'll get some, the bots will come after me at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's sad that I'm trying. What I think is happening is I think their AI is now, it has taught itself what the rules are. And when you look on the internet, it's all bad information that this is an opiate, it's a narcotic, it's deadly. And I think that because that's the prevailing information on the internet, and that's what keeps getting repeated, that's the default for the AI.
That's so weird because I've seen other videos like on how to prepare things, and
Yeah.
it's not. I don't know. I'm like you. I can't figure it out either. I don't know what they're doing with YouTube or like any of these things. Like when I gave my I made an advertisement for when I gave my talk on the whole the supposed relationship between the Amanita Muscaria and Christmas and Santa Claus, which, as you know, I reject all of that. I think it's not very good history personally. But that actually got flagged by Facebook, and they were like, you are promoting illegal stuff. I'm like, I am literally talking about
Jesus.
like how these things are not associated with Christmas, and how that is a modern idea that, much like the other bad information about the Amanita Muscaria found all over the internet, that's just more inaccurate, historically wrong information about the Amanita Muscaria on the internet. So I had to write all this back to them, and they reviewed it, and they allowed me to keep the advertisement up. But I was like, well, so I can't even talk about this anymore without getting flagged? Like, and it's like, and I'm saying the opposite of what you guys are accusing me of saying. Like, I'm going completely against popular culture here. So
I had a video taken down that said how to grow Amanita. And the very first thing out of my mouth is, you can't grow Amanita. And they took that down for teaching how to grow a deadly mushroom.
yeah, I was going to say, because you can't grow.
I'm like, did you not hear the first sentence out of my mouth?
No, they didn't. That's the thing, because it's not about listening to you. It's about picking, it says grow Amanita. Oh no, X, drugs, evil. And it's like, that's not even what's going on. The same thing happened to Andy Letcher, who wrote, I'm sure you've read Shroom, A Cultural History of the Magic Mushroom.
No, there's so much to read in this arena. And I'm still hearing about it all.
Oh, well, his book is a more critical look.
What is it called?
Shroom, A Cultural History of the Magic Mushroom.
All right.
And there was some professor, he was teaching music over at Oxford University, and some professor went after him, like, you're promoting drug use, this. He's like, just read the book. I'm not actually doing that at all. And if you do read the book, this guy, there's just like you there's such a passion and love for these fungal allies that it's like, what are you people talking about? Like, this isn't deadly stuff. The benzos, that's the garbage, not the mushroom.
And we are taught to normalize that shit. And if your doctor says take it, oh, good for you, honey. Don't worry about having to take a medication. It's for the best.
It's horrible. So, one thing I wanted to ask, you had sent me my friend and colleague Brian's after school video, and you wanted me to pay attention to a certain part of it. I didn't catch, what was the part you wanted to discuss?
Where he talked about Dionysus.
Okay.
And what did he call it? I wrote it down. Musterion? It was a term I had never, what is it?
Musterion? The mystery?
Yeah, it was a drink. It was a wine drink that he made.
The Kykeon?
The Musteria. The Musteria drink.
Well, okay, so the Kykeon, or as he pronounces it with the ancient Greek dialect, he says Kukion, which I think is way cooler, personally. There's the Kukion, and then there's also just the wine of Dionysus, which took on all different kinds of varieties.
Well, they just said that Dionysus had a drink that the Greeks called Musteria.
Yeah, he's just talking about wine.
Well, look, Muskemol and the MU, all across the languages, those two letters keep staying with this mushroom, like mucomor and muscaroid. Like that MU stays with this mushroom in a lot of languages. Sure. And I'm wondering if there's a root there. That's what I wanted to ask you about, was that term Musteria, and if it was made with grapes, there's a connection to grapes and this mushroom, because we think possibly the lactobacillus bacteria.
No, he's somewhat using the word incorrectly. Musterion just means mystery. He wasn't saying that the wine itself was called mystery. There's actually, in my opinion, there's a lot of mistakes in that video. The way he tries to tie Dionysus to Jesus is completely erroneous. And I'm not saying, again, I'm not a Christian. I usually get attacked like, oh, you're a Christian. It's like, no, I'm actually a witch. This is my altar to Gaia. I'm a witch, so I'm not a Christian. But the points that he uses to make that connection are found nowhere in the historical record. As just one example, he says that Dionysus was born of the virgin Semele. Semele was not a virgin. That does not appear anywhere in the historical record. In fact, the only place it appears that I'm aware of is his book. There's a lot of very loose interpretations. He's a lawyer. He's not a historian. So as a lawyer, he's just kind of, guilt or innocence doesn't really matter to a defense lawyer. They're just trying to make the case. Whereas to we lowly historians, we have to look at the evidence, and we're more like private detectives. We're just looking for the truth, historians. I'm not interested in what popular culture says. I'm not even interested in what I want to be true. Look, I wanted there to be a connection between the Amanita Muscaria and Santa Claus. I used to believe it in my early 20s. But then when I actually went and did the real hardcore history, the real deep stuff, I found out that there was nothing to it. It was pretty much all invented in like the 1970s and late 1970s, early 1980s. But it doesn't go back beyond that. Like there's nothing there. So there's popular culture, what popular culture says about all these things, and then there's what historians say about these things, and sometimes there's an overlap and other times there are not. And in the case with the Dionysus and Jesus thing, there's really, I mean, there's really nothing there. I mean, nothing. Sorry,
that's what I wanted to ask.
Too.
No, I'm thinking, but that was what I wanted to ask you. I was processing everything you were saying. So what I think, when I look at how people are today, I think they weren't any different then. And I think that things get blurred. I think people take things out of context and then they tell a story from their point of view, from their experience. And if they travel and then they take on the culture where they are, and then they happen to do something of note, and then they add to it. You see what I'm saying? Like, I think the lines start to get blurred. And when the guy that drew the Santa for the Coca-Cola company, he's from Sweden. And so he grew up with this mushroom, and he grew up with tales of the mushroom. And I'm wondering if he didn't, in his way, personify that in the red and white of the Santa, but not make a big deal out of it, certainly not tell anyone that. But it was such a part of his culture to do that. And if maybe he did that on purpose. And then
could I address that real quick?
Yeah.
So why I don't think that happened was that the first person to actually draw Saint Nicholas on American soil was a guy named John Pintard, and he drew him in the traditional colors of a bishop, which is white on white. And there's Santa Claus, actually his costume went through a variety of color changes all throughout the 1800s and into the early 20th century. There was no standard for Santa's costume any more than today. If I were to ask you what's the standard costume of the Tooth Fairy, you would have no idea, because we don't consider that. There is no standard well, in those days, there was no standard costume. The reason red and white was chosen, it was actually chosen because of, and I think you hit on this in one of your videos, that it had more to do with the American flag and a drawing of Santa Claus giving on the cover of Harper's Weekly, giving provision. Yeah. That's where the red and white actually come from. The first solid colorization of his costume wasn't red and white, it was red, white, and blue. And then literally a year after that, his costume becomes this yellow furry outfit. And then a few years after that, it's green and yellow and red. And it was all different kinds of colors until Pepsi settled on the red and white, because, and this goes into marketing psychology, apparently, and I'm not a marketer, so I could be wrong about this, but from what I understand, the little bit I understand about marketing is that red and white, the colors, are supposed to stimulate appetite. And that's
which was what their Coca-Cola, they had the cocaine, and then when they had to take that out, they had to find something stimulating, so they put caffeine in it. So I guess they're trying to do that whole subliminal,
you can, so here's the fun part. You can actually make a better case that Coca-Cola, the red and white of Santa's outfit, is a cover for cocaine than it is for the Amanita Muscaria. You can make a much better case for that. It's not true.
And it would make more sense.
But yeah, you can actually make a stronger case for cocaine than you can for the mushroom, and that's not even accurate that it was cocaine.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is the kind of stuff that, again, historians like, because I agree with you. People add their experience to these paradigms. We historians, we call that an anachronism, when you throw a modern idea onto the past. And that's what a lot of this lore about Santa Claus and the mushroom is. It's people today wanting this to be true and throwing their opinion of their love for this mushroom or their love for this symbol of psychedelia onto the past when it didn't actually exist. In those holiday cards that are often used to show that, oh, look, there's Siberian shaman eating mushroom. Those holiday cards are not from Siberia, they're from Germany. I'm on the West Coast, you're on the East Coast. We are closer in space than those Christmas cards are to the shamans in Siberia. There's no connection there whatsoever. Like and I tried so hard to trace it, but again, it starts with the German custom of the Glücksbringer, and that has nothing to do with Siberian shamans at all.
Well, also that whole thing about the Christmas tree and them drying them in the trees. Like, okay, first of all, it's cold and rainy when these come up. Second of all, have you ever tried to put a very heavy Amanita in a conifer tree?
Yes, exactly.
They don't stay.
They don't stay.
I did, and I stuck a pin in it to make it stay, and it rotted before it died. I'm like, I'm calling bullshit on that one.
Yeah, well, it is bullshit. I mean, no, we're absolutely decor. And like one of the things I say, it's like, okay, imagine trying to dry a mushroom by hanging it on a tree in the winter outside in Siberia.
And not only that, these mushrooms, especially in Europe, are full of parasites. And it's okay, you dry them, you kill them, you eat them, extra protein. But if you don't get them dry quickly, it'll disintegrate. Like the whole thing will just disintegrate.
Absolutely.
Like you got to get them dried quickly. So I'm more of a skeptic. And it's not because I'm a negative person.
No.
It's just because the more you live and the more that you're a practical person and the more you want to understand how things work, you go, well, shit, it doesn't even work like I was told. And when you see that over and over, you just become a skeptic, I think. And you just wind up.
Historian. and you look and you find out. Well,
or a scientist.
Or a yeah, but they're the same. They're all the same things. Skepticism is not look. Airplanes fly because people were skeptical. Everything that we enjoy about modern living, skepticism is it's not a noun, it's a verb. It's a tool that you use. You start off with what's called the null hypothesis, which is that I don't know if I'm right. Let's look at the evidence. That's skepticism. All the greatest things that we know about come from that. I
just hope people don't think I'm a negative person. I'm not trying to be a negative person. I am about the accuracy of information, which happens to be an autistic trait. And my autism, that's like, I am a stickler for accuracy. And I like that you are too.
Yeah.
And I really vibe with people that need the accuracy. And I guess I see a lot of hypocrisy and I see a lot of laziness and a lot of just repeating what you're told. And when that winds up perpetuating bad information, I'm like, okay, can we just first of all, go on record saying I disagree or there's no proof of that. And this is what I actually find. And then I make the video and then I at least stated my case and it's there and then I can move on. And I'm not going to change the world about that, but at least I can say something about it. And I don't know, pick my battles where I feel like they're important.
Sure. I mean, reasonable people can disagree respectfully. We're allowed to do that, and today I think a lot of it has to do with social media because people kind of get into a bubble with it where it's like if anyone disagrees with someone else, it's like they take it as how could you disagree? And it's like, no. Like, that's okay. We're allowed, as long as nobody's being a jerk, we're allowed to disagree with each other. and that's fine. And like, again, we look at the evidence and we see what's there. And if you're wrong, there's nothing wrong with saying I was wrong. Like again, I used to believe all the mushroom stuff with the Santa Claus. I used to believe there were mushrooms in Christian art. I believed all that stuff, but I was wrong. I was just wrong about that. And look, I'm still here. I'm still okay. I'm still a healthy individual. Well, somewhat, but you know what I mean? Like there's
You
nothing.
don't, hang on. No,
What?
no mushrooms in Christian art?
No, not at all.
Which
Prove it.
book?
What's that?
Which book? Which book?
Which books?
You're writing it right now?
So I have several videos on my channel about it. I have a few articles written about it, and I'm currently waiting to hear back from Inner Traditions about my book called The Mushroom Heretic and the Search for the Psychedelic Christ. Because I am the mushroom heretic. I go against. What's that?
I'm going to get you on my channel.
Sure, I'd love
talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The things that what it is a lot of people who have studied mushrooms and studied psychedelia have not studied Christian history or Christian art history. So when they look at those pictures, yeah, they kind of look like a mushroom if you don't know what you're looking at. But if you know the history and you know what those shapes actually are and what they mean, the entire thing falls apart. The whole mushroom in Christian art completely disintegrates. Like a mushroom hung on a tree outside in Siberia in the winter.
Right.
It just rots away.
But it makes sense though, if you're trying to take over paganism and you've enacted drum suppression and you threaten to kill people who use the mushroom or are found with it, and you want to make Christianity a thing, like they didn't try to wipe out paganism?
No, they didn't kill people for being found with the mushroom. In fact, in my book, Psychedelic Mystery Traditions, that I was talking about earlier, I have 3 different chapters that outline how Christians use psychedelics in the ancient and medieval world. They were not against these things. This idea that Christians were secretive and it was this elite group of power-hungry priests that kept the mushroom is so not true at all. I mean, I translate text from their original languages. They talk openly about this stuff. There was a bishop, Theodoret, living in Syria in around the 4th, 5th century of the Common Era, who wrote openly about how he liked to take opium and read from the Gospels to find hidden meanings. Nobody killed him for that. In fact,
so if they like their mushrooms, why would they not paint them in the art?
Well, because I don't think that Christians were necessarily so here's the thing. Christians wrote openly about cannabis use, they wrote openly about mandrake use, and they wrote openly about opium use. They don't say really anything about mushrooms. It's just not in the historical record.
That's so weird when they grow all over Europe. So all of them, the blue and the red.
Oh, of course. And I'm not saying that people were not using them. And sometimes I'm mistaken as saying that. People were, in fact, again, give me one second. I found what I believe to be the one area where I believe that a mushroom did influence a Christian author, not a painter, but an author. And I have it, this is Psychedelic Mystery Traditions. So this person is writing a medical book. So it's not a painting, but it comes from a medical treatise called Liber de Venenos, which is the Book of Poisons. Sorry, just finding it. And so here, I want to show you. So here's the entry for opium. You see that?
Okay. Yeah.
Now, there's a little bit of an embellishment there, right on the O. Mm-hmm. Most of the topics, most of the plant descriptions are not that decorative as they are with opium. Even henbane is not very, it's pretty standard run-of-the-mill penciling or inking, I should say. Until you get to the entry for mushrooms. The entry for mushrooms looks like that.
Holy crap.
You see that? Fungos?
Wow.
This flower, doesn't that look like a medieval hippie drew that? So while I do not think there are any mushrooms in Christian art, I do believe that whoever this person was who drew out this lettering absolutely ate either the Amanita muscaria or psilocybe mushroom or something, and decided to express that through the lettering.
Man, I'm so bummed because one of my patrons got this painting from a church. They let him have it. And it's like plain as day mushrooms
Which one?
all over it. And I'm trying to see if I can find it.
Is it the plain coral fresco?
I don't know, man.
Oh, okay.
I'm not an art person, so I'm not very good at like remembering names of
Sure.
stuff like that. I'm so trained in the logic and the left brain stuff that I kind of suck at the right brain stuff. But I downloaded it. He actually took a picture of it and sent it to me, and I'm going to hold it up to the camera and see if you can see it, and see if it doesn't white out. I'm not sure how this Ring camera is going to work with it. But it looks like one huge mushroom, and then the halo mushroom, and then there's all these red and white dots. Like there's all. I'll send it to you.
I don't see a mushroom. Where on that image is a mushroom?
Well, okay. You know how the Amanitas have the skirt?
Sure. Yeah.
Around them or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so whoever that is, this woman is. It looks like this is the whole mushroom, and that she's the stipe, and that's the skirt.
See, that's.
It looked like plain as day to me. I didn't even have to like try to read into it. It looked, and these two things on the side have dots on them, and they look like mushrooms with dots on them.
But you see how the top.
But I don't know anything about like religious art and symbolism and stuff. So
yeah, that's I see. The thing is, you can see, like, I could do that same thing by pointing your attention to a stop sign. Look, it's red at the top and the letters are white. And look, it's on a long stem and the top has a bulbous top. So obviously the stop sign was invented to cover up the holy mushroom, right?
Or it's an homage to the mushroom. We worship mushrooms everywhere a road intersected.
Yeah. So you see what I'm saying? It's like, you can kind of do that you could do that with anything. If you want to see a mushroom, you can find a mushroom there, but does that mean that that's what the artist intended? And that's the question that I ask, when I'm doing my very boring, very not well received mushroom research, because people want there to be mushrooms in Christian art. People want.
See, that's why I like you so much. You're like my, you're the author brother of my channel, because I don't know. I swear, I think I'm doing my channel a disservice, and I could grow it faster if I just drank the Kool-Aid, if I just talked and waxed poetic about it and talked all about the ego death I've experienced and showed all kinds of pictures of mushrooms in religion and talked all about decorating my trees outside with the mushrooms and just did all these fantastical videos that played into the narrative. I swear to fucking God, they would get so many views, thousands and thousands of views.
They would.
And I'm sacrificing a paycheck for the truth. And it's like,
but you have to, because please, and don't ever give that up, because
I can't.
I'm doing the same
it's not in my DNA.
Yeah. The publisher, they want me to write a book about how there are mushrooms in Christian art. And that's why it's taking they're like, because that sells. But I'm like, look, here's the deal. So my whole thing, and this is something that not a lot of people know, I used to think there were mushrooms in Christian art. I just didn't think somebody had made a strong enough case for it. So I set out to make that case. But as I studied and as I did not Googling my opinion, but real archival research, I realized, wow, there's nothing to this. Now I read Latin, and I know a lot of people don't. And I could easily write a book and say, oh yeah, this Latin text says there's a mushroom here, but I'd be lying.
But you'd get called out on that shit.
Don't
you think? By your peers?
Most of my peers don't read Latin.
Really?
No.
I did the same thing. When you look at the literature on what the constituents of the Amanita mushroom, as far as we know so far, I mean, we're still working on it, and I'm preparing a video on it. But if you look at the constituents, the actives in it are water soluble, period. And so I ran across this guy on Facebook that gave me this old Russian recipe where you soak Amanita in olive oil for a topical for pain. And I'm like, oh, that's bullshit. But I mean, it's an old recipe. And then I saw it again, I think on our forum, someone mentioned doing that. And I'm like, I need to make a video calling people out on this shit and being like, look, I honor the lore. I honor the recipe. I honor the past. However, we know that the actives that actually do the work are water soluble, and that's what it is. So in doing my research, I actually made that. I wasted a lot of Amanita, packing them in olive oil, doing it by the directions, exactly how they say. And I have a very old back injury. I have been in pain for 15 years with it. And I live with the pain, and that's just what you do. You live with pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to have back surgery, and nothing fixes it. And I go into spasms regularly, and I don't sleep because of it. And this is just the way I live, and I'm used to it, but I'm not going to take a bunch of drugs. I'm just not going to do that anymore. So I thought, well, I'll put some on that, you know? So I let it sit the whole 6 weeks, and I was in so much pain one night. I'm like, oh, fuck it. I'll go try that. In 20 minutes, I was pain-free for the first time in 15 years.
Really?
And I'm like, what the, okay. So I let it go for 2 days, get all good and spasmy again. And I tried it again. And in 20 minutes, the pain was gone, and I slept like a baby. I was like, what is going on?
And this was with the olive oil.
Yes.
But, wow. Well, let me say that I admire both your commitment to truth and your commitment to being that intrepid traveler, you know, like going into parts unknown and really testing these things and being able to change your mind. Okay, so you thought at first, oh, there's no way this could work. And now here you are getting the best night of sleep. And it's like, so you see what I'm like, that's just such a great, please don't sell that out for a paycheck. You are too important.
No, not at all. And not only that, I sell that now in my store for topical pain relief. So then I thought, okay, I want to make chocolates, but you can't with Amanita because you can't just put the dried mushroom in there. It's too dangerous, all that ibotenic acid and stuff, and I don't want to do that. So the only way you can do it is to extract the water. If you put water in chocolate, you'll seize it up. So now that I have this oil tincture, extraction, whatever, I don't know what the fuck's in it. I don't know what it's pulling out. But I thought I could use that in the chocolate, but I don't know about oral ingestion because I don't know what this is. So I'm going to test it first before I waste it on the chocolate. So last night, I've been in a really rough mood because I did that 8.5 grams of psilocybin back in October, and I'm still reeling from it, and I'm still trying to process it. And then my channel getting attacked was pretty crappy. And then the negativity has been coming at me lately really hard. And I've been in a rough place. And I almost postponed this. I was like, my negative energy is going to come through. And I'm myself. I don't fake it. And I didn't want to be a bummer and a downer. And so I said, you know, if I wake up and I knew I was not going to wake up in a very good place. It's a lot moving in this direction, and I need to turn it around and move it in this direction. And I was like, I want to wait until we can have a positive conversation. So anyway, last night, I didn't want to take my Amanita tincture or tea or anything. I wanted to try that oil orally and see if there was anything in it. And I took 2 drops of it. And in about 20 minutes, I had this grin on my face that would not go away. And I'm like, what the hell? But it wasn't the ibotenic acid. It didn't feel like the Muskemol where it makes you laugh. It felt similar to the way psilocybin, when it first comes on, makes you get that permagrin. Mm-hmm. And then I just started feeling so happy and grateful for everything. I had a completely different perspective about the haters, about YouTube, about my issues or problems. And I was like, you know what? It'll all work out. I'll deal with it, you know, as it comes. There's bigger things to deal with. And then I started feeling the Amanita voice like I do when I'm tripping, like it was very present. I started feeling grateful about experiences with my daughter and her childhood. And I wanted to call everyone and tell them how much I love them. I thought life was just beautiful. I went to bed and had amazing dreams. And I woke up this morning crying about how amazing the world is. I'm like, what the hell is going on? I don't know what that's all about, but science can't explain it because there isn't a single thing in the literature that's in an Amanita mushroom that is oil-based that can do that.
Well, it's still it's that reconnection, and it's I think that that's what it is. It's like we're connecting to something that is such a deep part of humanity that has been, at least, you know, since the late 60s, has been completely repressed from us and taken away and said, no, you don't get to have cognitive liberty. You don't get to have spiritual liberty. You have to do these things the way we say you have to do them. Like, I don't, I'm one of those people, like, I fully admit that I use all of these medicines and I don't care about any human laws about them. I just don't give a shit. Like the illegal nature of something plays absolutely no role in how I go about my own cognitive and spiritual liberties. I don't care. And
I'm
I don't
actually
think
going to
it's,
make a video about cognitive liberty. I'm actually against the school system too, and I don't believe that anybody should be told what they fill their mind with. That to me, that is the most sacred thing you're born with
yes,
is is mind sovereignty.
yes,
You have the sovereign right to propel yourself forward in the world with what springs up in you, which we see infants do, we see toddlers do, we see children do. They go toward numbers, they go toward literature, they go toward bright colors, they go toward the outside, they go toward whatever they are doing. And to take them and hijack them and put them in a desk in the inside under fluorescent light and say, you must now learn to read. You must now report this back to me. You must, you must, you must. It is disgusting and it is slavery. And of course, don't even get me started on the school system and the whole, Ford and factories and the whole reason we created the school system.
yep.
But neither one of my children were forced to learn anything. I unschooled them. They grew up wild and free, and they are perfectly good, normal human beings, and they are earning their keep and finding their way in the world. And there's not a damn thing wrong with them. And I'm proud of them. And if I told you what my daughter did, people would be blown away that she never went to school and that she did her own thing. And then when you talk about medication, like the way that we commune with these things isn't just prescribed by someone, it's a dialogue between you and your inner self and the highness of you and the higher beings that these fungal teachers are, and the wisdom of the trees that they grew up with, and the wisdom of the soil that they have taken knowledge from around you. And they're speaking to you and saying, that's enough of me in this dose. Or they're saying, hey, we need a little bit more here. You should probably take a little bit more today. Like they tell you what to do and how to treat yourself. And for a government that I don't even like
Yeah,
to
right.
tell me what I can and can't, like it's so egregious. It's all so egregious.
Yeah,
And for people to pick shame me, like my foraging videos, like you're telling me I don't have a dialogue with this mushroom. Like I will leave a perfectly good mushroom because it goes, hello, nice to meet you. I'm here to stay. Have a good day.
yeah,
And
they
I'm
do
like,
that.
cool, enjoy yourself. And the others are going, take me. And I'm like, okay, let's go.
Yeah, and sometimes they just say, hey, I'm not ready yet. It's like, hey, look, I don't even mind. Just give me a few days. Let me spread my wings a little bit. And it's like you come back and it's like, now there's this beautiful disc, you know, this red and white spotted miracle. And you just like, and it's like, is it not like, yeah, that's good, you know? No, I feel that. Like, that was something else that resonated with me. In your Amanita and the Ego video, I used to be a private educator because I looked around me and I was a private educator for 10 years. And because kids were not, it's like, look, you're literally sitting in these classrooms all hours of the day, and you're not even learning anything. You're coming out and you still don't know pretty basic stuff. So a friend of mine and I, we had our own private education business. He handled all the math and science. I did the history, art, literature, that stuff. And we it was ended up being really successful because kids do want to learn a lot of this stuff. And we it was a good time. You know, I loved doing it. I'm doing other things now in my life, but it was great. And I was happy to be able to actually provide an actual education. And sometimes, yeah, I would hold my sessions if it was a nice day out. We would sit out on the lawn. We'd be like, let's go outside. Like, we're gonna go, stretch out on the lawn. And we're gonna, not gonna make it this big a deal, and we're gonna talk about this stuff, and we're gonna have, an open dialogue, and we're both gonna learn something from each other. It's not just gonna be being like this to you. We're gonna communicate with each other the way humans are supposed to.
I have a problem with this whole authority thing, man. The way social workers, people look up to social workers like they know how to tell you how to parent. And so many parents are scared to death and they ask their doctor how to parent and they ask all these people how to be parents. And it's like, why don't you listen to your inner wisdom? Like your child and you, like y'all have a dialogue, it's going on. And this whole teach me, help me, teach me thing that our society is built on. It's so sad. And I don't understand why we lost our inner voice, our ability to hear that inner wisdom. It's one thing to go to someone and say, tell me what you know. It's another to say, tell me how to be me. You know?
No, that's really powerful. And that's what we need more of, is tell me how to be me. How can I live the best version of this slice of the cosmos looking out through my eyes? I agree wholeheartedly with that.
So many people write me and say, you have to tell me step by step how to get off benzos, how to take this mushroom, exactly what dose. Like, do I need to leave my husband? I'm like, I can't tell you those things.
No one can.
You have to be you.
Yeah.
And then you have to listen to how to do those things. And that's what I want so much for my channel to do, is to normalize the use of these things and normalize inner wisdom.
Well, you are. That's what it does. I mean, at least that's what I got out of it when I watch your videos.
I hope so. I hope so, man.
And I mean,
it makes me sad how little people trust themselves.
Yeah, it's a little, but like, you're saying, like, we're raised in such a way to not listen to ourselves and to not, pay attention to that voice. Krisemi, I know, baby girl. Sorry, my cat's still, she wants me to play with her.
Mine's outside the door waiting.
Oh, yeah.
I have 5.
You have 5?
Yeah.
What are their names? What are their names?
Licorice is elder. Freya, she's my witch kitty. She's my black cat. And Hannah Banana. And Gracie Grace, or Gracie May, and the baby Stormy. They're all rescues.
Really?
If I didn't have them, they'd be dead. So what am I going to do?
So an interesting thing, this is little Krisemi Sabina the lion heart.
My God. Licky lick.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
She's the kitty that kisses back. I love you, Krisemi. So she might be the only kitty cat that has ever eaten, that I know about, that has actually eaten the Amanita Muscaria.
My Freya microdoses.
Oh, see, we didn't feed it to her. I
didn't feed it to her either. She ate it on her own.
She just ate it on her own.
Yeah.
Woke up one morning and there was a little thing of vomit on the floor. And I'm like, oh, I was like, oh, wait. Oh, and I'm like, she ate the Amanita. Like, there's a little Amanita. I'm like, yeah. So she's eaten belladonna accidentally as well. She's eaten psilocybin. Again, accident on my altar. Can't see it from this vantage point, but I have 4 different shells that have 4, what I call the 4 sacred herbs, or 4 sacred teachers is better because one of them's mushroom. So it's psilocybin, cannabis, henbane, and mandrake. And the first night we brought her home, I'm working on my computer, and all of a sudden I hear something behind me. She's on the altar, and I turn around. I'm like, Krisemi. She lifts her head up, and she has this whole thing of mushroom powder. I was like, oh, no. And I call my phone. I'm like, Eden. She's like, what? I'm like, Krisemi just ate mushrooms. She's like, what? I was like, yeah, she just ate mushrooms. So she was okay, but she definitely had an experience from it, because she was, you could tell that she was there. And when we harvested our belladonna berries, we had them in a box, and thought that the box was sealed up well enough. And you know, kitty cats in boxes, she found a way in there. And so we're like, oh, and we quickly got all the belladonna berries out of it, but we must have missed one because a few days later, she jumps out of the box and, you know, everything's fine. And a few hours later, she's just this stoic little kitty cat staring into space with all the saliva coming out of her mouth. I was like, oh shit. I'm like, I think she ate belladonna too. So Grisemi has eaten Amanita Muscaria, psilocybin mushroom, and belladonna, all on her own volition. I would never, you know, force feed anybody or anything, any kind of medicine, because
I think they know, though. They smell because cats don't eat things that isn't food. And I think they smell the entheogenic, whatever the actives in them, the nitrogen containing molecules in them. And like, not all my cats will eat the Amanita, but Freya and Stormy, they'll eat it. And Freya only microdoses when she needs it, and she'll just take like a couple of nibbles and walk away. But she suffered probably the most trauma out of all the cats. And I think that she knows it's a healing mushroom and that it's good for her. So I always leave one out dried and let them nibble on it as they feel like they need to. But Stormy ate way too much the first time, and she threw up and threw up and threw up. But she learned. And after that, she only eats a bite and then she walks away. So I think she knows. I think they know.
Well, cats, as I've often been quoted as saying, cats are the only other animal besides the human that is aware of their divinity.
Hey, wait, I saw something recently about a cat in a study that they said that they believe that cats are sentient and that they know their reflection, or some do.
Really?
Yeah.
If you find it, please send it to me. I'd love to.
I will. And recently there's a cat on YouTube that's learning how to communicate with buttons.
Oh, really?
And recently she showed empathy because her human is always saying, "What do you want to play?" And in return, she said, "What do you want to play?"
Really?
The cat asked what she wanted to play.
I could see it because Grisemi is a very great communicator. Like, she lets me know exactly what she wants. Like, I know she wants me to play with her right now. Like, I know for a fact. In fact, she's so smart. Once she was meowing by, you know, there's her water bowl and her food bowl, and she was meowing by the bowls. And I'm looking, I'm like, Grisemi, you have food? And he's like, well. I'm like, Grisemi, look, there's food right here. And she picks up her paw and she taps her water bowl. And I look, I'm like, oh, you're out of water. Because it was kind of hard, you know, water's a little bit more difficult to like tell when it's like she told me, Dad, you're wrong. I know I have food. It's the water I want. So I filled up the water and she licked it right up. I was like, wow, she told me that that's what she wanted.
It looks like that they understand English around, it takes about a year for them to start to understand English. And if you watch, the older they get, the more sentences you can say that they understand.
Oh, yeah, she knows her name. Like when I call her, she comes. Like just like a puppy would come when you call. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she comes when I call her name.
I think that they have so much more cognition and emotion and sentience. Well, don't even get me started. I can talk about animals and all that for
I agree with you. I absolutely agree with that.
It makes me sad how little humans are aware of the sentience of the beings around them. And a topic for another day would be mycelial sentience. That's like another whole thing.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. But that's the other thing, is that these medicines, especially the fungal medicines, I mean, they really help you to, one, speak to the plants, but also to speak to the, like, to know that these little creatures that we love so much, like, they have thoughts and feelings and wants, and as it turns out, empathy as well. You know, at least as that study that you mentioned showing, indicated. So yeah, I just, I mean, I love kitty cats. I'm a total cat person. I mean, I love puppies too, of course, because they're amazing. But I definitely, you know, I feel a closer kinship with my little kitties.
I think I would be at home in a barn with the animals. I'm getting more and more feral as I get older.
Yeah, right. I totally feel that. Like, yeah, like you're like throwing off the the shackles of certain aspects of modern life. And let me say, look, there are certain things that I love about modern life. Like, I love that you and I are able to communicate from 3,000 miles away. That's really cool. But do these things, does modern life also come with a price? Well, I think it does. I think it comes with a price of the mind and a price of the soul. I really do. Even though, it's this trade-off, and how I see some of a return, get some of my money back, is through mushrooms. That's how I get a return on the price I pay for my mind and soul to live. Again, in things aren't too terrible. I like that there are grocery stores. I think that that's pretty cool. I like that we have shelters for homeless people. I think that's really cool. That we could take people on the street and bring them in and give them a warm bed for a night and give them some hot food. I think that that's fantastic. But it does come with a little bit of a price. And yeah, these medicines help recoup some of the costs, so to speak.
I don't think we were supposed to live without them, because that whole fight or flight system in the brain, the way the brain works to catalog what hurt you so that you write that into your subconscious, so that when you go forward, you gather more and more instincts about who to avoid, what to avoid, how to survive, how to live in your community and all that. But the terror and the PTSD that comes from it is what these entheogens will remove. Yes. And so you need the emotional connection and the emotional interaction to frighten you, to encode that shit. But then you're supposed to let that go and retain the knowledge.
Like training.
And and so when you don't do that, you back up and then you become mentally ill. And if we were allowed to take these, if it was part of our culture, if it was normalized and it was just a thing that you do to stay mentally well, can you imagine what kind of a society we would be when we didn't have the depression or the addiction or the panic and the anxiety and all of the layers of listening and speaking and moving with the earth, plus all the lessons we learned from all the things that scared us and taught us.
Yeah, my partner is actually working on an article right now about that very premise. About it.
I want to read that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, and I agree with everything you said, but I also feel like we are moving in a direction where these things are becoming more normal. So I'm in Portland, Oregon. We just legalized psilocybin for therapeutic use, and we decriminalized all substances in the entire state. The legalization of psilocybin is only in the city of Portland itself. But the entire state completely decriminalized everything. And as you know, Denver, Colorado decriminalized mushrooms. Oakland, California decriminalized all plant medicines, like everything. And it was so cool because one of the people on the city council in Oakland actually said, well, I was raised, my grandmother gave me these things for medicine. So it's like she was on our side and she's sitting on the city council. So I think that, like, how cool is that? Like, what a tremendous paradigm shift. Obviously, we still have a lot of work ahead of us, but even just on, I think it was February 4th or 5th, Cambridge, Massachusetts just decriminalized all entheogenic plants. Like it's the conversation is changing. There is a shift here, and as long as we do the right thing by, and I mean like you personally, by keep putting out good information instead of, going for the paycheck information, because that's what matters. That's the people getting the big paycheck to write garbage that just, satisfies popular culture. They're not part of this paradigm shift because they're just bringing up old paradigm bullshit. It's the people like you that you're the one that is going to bring this new paradigm about. And so that's, one of the reasons that, again, not to gush, but I'm such a big fan of yours.
Well, and that's what I keep in mind every time I make a video. I don't make it and think, oh God, I hope this gains traction and gets views in the next 24 hours. I'm thinking, how is this going to read 10 years from now?
Yes, exactly.
Like, who's going to see this 10 years from now? How is it going to be in the culture at that point, 20 years from now, if they don't take the channel down? So what I look forward to is a day, and Adeptus Psychonautica, his channel's freaking amazing. He and I did a thing like this, and we were talking about it, and he was like, I can't wait for the day where it's normalized that you can walk into the office and people are like, hey, how was your weekend? And be like, dude, I had a transformative experience on psilocybin. So I'm a little, and I'd be like, oh, you know what, dude, you can do this today because, it's like a more sedate thing, and we could put you over here on that project, and let
Absolutely.
us know how it goes and good for you, and then they check in on you. How are you processing it? Are you learning anything? Instead of this whole, oh God, I got wasted this weekend. I feel
Yeah,
so hungover. And it's like glorifying toxicity is okay. Like that's something's weird about that.
you just read my mind.
Poisoning yourself. So why don't we like normalize saying that? And I forget and go to the store and have my merch, like this. I'll have something like this or that on. And then I have my mask that's got a big Amanita on it and earrings with my Amanita earrings. Like, and I'll forget that I've stacked all this up and I'll forget and I get these weird looks. And I'm like, why is everyone looking at me like this? And then I'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot, but I'm looked down on. People don't talk to me. They won't make eye contact. They get their kids and kind of move away from me. And
But that's a regional.
it's not like I've got tattoos all over my face, which there's nothing wrong with, but in the South would definitely be a thing. But they look at me like I'm evil or weird or something.
But this is the thing, if you lived in Portland, you would be complimented. Like I get compliments like when I, express my otter sides. Like I have a witch hat that I wear. Like I just like, it's one of those felt, it's not a big one, it's a little bit smaller. But even just last night at the supermarket, the guy at the fish counter was like, he's like, yo, that hat is so awesome. Like, and we just had a nice 5-minute conversation about the hat and like traveling to Japan because he travels to Japan, and we just, we ended up just having this really nice conversation. Like that's one of the reasons I left New York actually, and to come here.
I think my days are numbered in the South. I love my house. I love my property. I don't ever want to leave it. But if they don't change the laws around here soon.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I don't live in Texas. I love Texas. I love the people. I love the food. Yeah, I love the music. I love so much of it. But it's like your medicine laws are draconian. Like I can't live in a place where I can't grow mushrooms, or if I go out foraging, I don't know where I would forage mushrooms in Texas, but it's like, and if I get caught with a joint, I'm going to prison for that. Get the fuck out of here. Like, and again, and like you said, it's like, but it's perfectly fine if I go out and nearly drink myself to death, get into a fight, get into a car accident. Oh, that's just normal.
I mean, you'll go to jail, but you won't get a felony charge.
Yeah, you get put in the drunk tank and you're out in 24 hours. If I have if I'm smoking a joint, I'm going to go to prison. That's ridiculous.
If you sell the Amanita and you don't put not for human consumption, you can go to prison.
Oh yeah, of course.
Like, what is that?
It's ridiculous.
It's so messed up.
It is, but again, we are changing that paradigm. And as much as I don't enjoy a lot of aspects of this government, the one thing I do like about it is that the founders put in it the ability to amend the laws. Other places did not have that before this country. You couldn't just get together. I mean, even just the right to assemble and talk about this stuff. Like we can do that here. Like I go and I give speeches sometimes in different countries, and I have to sign things saying that I won't say certain things. And one of the things that, again, America, the United States obviously has its problems, that's for damn sure, but I have never had to sign anything that said, I'm going to watch my mouth. Never once. That's only another place.
I didn't know that was a thing, and that's good to know because I'm planning a trip to Sweden for the Amanita harvest in Sweden this fall.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So that's like a cool thing.
That sounds awesome.
I hope I can do it. I hope so. I hope I can do it. I mean, I'm, planning on it. We'll see.
Now, is there like a big festival, or are you just going to pick Amanita Muscaria?
No, it's just that there's a shaman there. The guy that makes all my merch, he draws all of my stuff.
Oh, okay.
And he's a shaman. And he knows the Amanita very well. He loves the Amanita. And, the Swedes love this mushroom. And It's prolific there.
Oh yeah.
So I just want to go see it in the area where it's the original DNA, because I
Sure.
have the Persicina here, but all the lore and the stories and all of that and the use of it and the ancestors that I feel like I want to go meet their lineage, the
Yeah.
actual ones, from that line that the
Hell yeah.
Norse used, that the Vikings used, that the Celts used, that all these people used. They all come from that northern DNA line. So
Did you ever see that Celt mushroom necklace, like that archaeological find?
no,
Oh,
what?
it's fantastic. It's this bronze, like from like I might get this wrong, so nobody, hold my feet to the fire for this, but I think it's from the Bronze Age. It's this necklace, and hanging off of it are all these little mushrooms. And they're
Oh
clearly
my God.
mushrooms, not like mushrooms in Christian art that are debatable, but like they're clearly mushrooms. And it's like,
Really?
oh yeah, these go so far back, as you know, they go so far back in our culture. And that's why like my book that I was telling you about, Psychedelic Mystery Traditions, is all about the Western lineage of psychedelic use. Because, you go to a head shop and there's books about peyote, books about ayahuasca, and all good stuff, no doubt. But nobody ever really writes about the Western lineage. So that's what Chris Bennett, I don't know if you're familiar with his work as well. Uh, Probably the greatest cannabis historian on the planet, in my opinion. I might be a little biased because he's a good friend of mine and a colleague, but he really is unbelievably good with cannabis history. And it's like, at least with religion and magic and spirituality in Western traditions, he's the top guy. And it's like, we do have these traditions, and there's nothing to be ashamed about with that.
Well, there is no shame anywhere. That's a construct of our society, is to use shame to build our society and control people and manipulate people. Shame is like the fear and shame. I
Sure.
think those are the two largest feelings that I'm trying to help people no longer feed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we're about an hour and 45 minutes in.
Seriously?
Yeah, yeah. I
Look,
feel
I know a lot of people in the Pacific Northwest now. So I think I need to plan that trip.
you should come if you don't make it to Sweden in
Look
the
at
fall.
this, an hour and 45 minutes. Like if
Yeah,
we get together, yeah.
I'm saying that. Yeah, if you can't make it to Sweden for that harvest, we'll definitely show you some great mushroom spots out here. That's for sure.
Cool. That would be great.
Did if you have anything else you'd like to plug right now, or any final thought?
Everything is on my channel and everything is in the descriptions of my channels. So show up, and I have stuff on nature walks, and then I do stuff on mental health and addiction, and then I do stuff on the Amanita, and then I also have like an arts side of it. So whatever appeals to you, go find that playlist and watch it. And if you want to support the channel financially, it's all in the description, and maybe there's a way there that speaks to you to support it. And if not, then consume it all. Just consume it. That's all I care about.
Yeah, and to our Sanctum Oddcast listeners, we're big fans of Amanita Dreamer, excuse me, New York just came out, Dreamer. we're,
Lima.
we're big fans of Amanita Dreamer in this house, and absolutely encourage you to check out her stuff. It's really great. It's excellent. It's top-notch information, and what it seems like, some really great products as well for Amanita products for healing, medicinal purposes. Please support her any way you can. And yeah, until next time, I'm Tom Hatsis with Sanctum Psychedelia, reminding everyone that you free your mind by using your brain.
Yeah.
Peace out, all. Look at that.